everyone. Back at it again in my little yellow kayak. I just launched the kayak and we're headed out to go fish for crappie again. We've got a beautiful, picture-perfect day. Pretty much no wind, although it's supposed to be blowing east. In this little backwater here, there's no wind. I'm looking around, looking at lily pads coming up. I saw a snapping turtle back here. That's a good sign. They usually search out the warmest water. And I spooked a few bigger fish. I assume they were bass or pickerel, but they're just starting to move up. But I didn't think I would do very well for bass today with no wind, so I thought crappie are a good option. And we're going to do part 2 of this series, Can You Beat the Z-Man Shad Fryz? And I've got 2 or 3 contenders to try out. But first, we're going to make sure the Z-Man Shad Fryz still works. Alright, same as before, cast out, reel it in slow. And I don't know, this was my second cast, I think. And they're still here. As the water temperatures warm up, they will spawn and they will spread out some more. But I'm still catching them on the eastern shoreline right here. And that's what we're after. See ya! Alright, moving down this bank here. This is a couple casts later. Same thing, cast it out, slow roll it in. It's fishing kind of the edge of the drop off there. Still pretty shallow. That's not a crappie. That's a bluegill. Decent sized one. Pretty much anything eats that little shad fryz. And they're starting to mix in here with the crappie as it gets warmer. Okay, same thing. I'm still fishing shallow. Cast it out. I'm going to start my retrieve right away because I'm in shallow water. And boom! Got another one. Let's see if that's a sunfish or a crappie. I think that's a little smaller crappie. Yep. The smaller ones have smaller mouths, so it's harder to get my thumb in there. But eventually I will get a thumb on him and show him to you and set him free to do his thing. There he is. Alright, same thing. Still fishing shallow. Just slow roll it back. Wait for the hit. That's a 1000 size Daiwa reel. A Daiwa Presso rod. 6-pound Berkley X9 braid to a 4-pound mono leader. And I'm just slow rolling that shad fryz back to the boat. And I noticed there was a crappie following it, and I was just going to hang it over the side and see if he would eat it. And he did. These fish were pretty agreeable as long as I was throwing the shad fryz. There he is. Alright, let's do one more to make sure the shad fryz really is working. I cast out into a little deeper water. I'm off the edge of the drop off right now. And I gave it a couple seconds to drop a little bit more after I reeled in my slack. And now I'm going to do the slow roll back in. Nothing to it. Yeah, so in shallow water you want to start reeling right away so you don't hook leaves and branches and twigs and so forth. In deeper water I'll often count it down a couple seconds. That's a little better one. Target species and everything. He was hanging right on the edge of that drop off. There he is. Bigger ones are easier to get my thumb on too. Off he goes. Alright, we established that the shad fryz still works. Now we're going to try a little micro chatterbait with a Bobby Garland baby shad as a trailer. And it looks pretty good in the water. But for whatever reason, I stopped getting bites. Now it also runs pretty shallow because that blade is offering a lot of resistance relative to the size of the whole profile. It only runs down about, I don't know, 6 inches deep. And I guess you could count it down, but it wants to ride up because because of that blade in the front. And it really doesn't weigh much to begin with. It's about a 1/16 of an ounce. So it's a little micro chatterbait that weighs a 1/16 of an ounce, and that blade keeps it running near the surface. It's almost like a wake bait or something like that. So it took me a little while to get a bite, and I knew I was a round fish because of the Shad Fryz, and I was a little surprised they didn't eat it as well. I really thought they would come up and eat it, but eventually I did get one to eat it, but it was the wrong species. I've got a pickerel on a little micro chatterbait, and I'm just trying to keep my line out of his teeth. And if I could get him in the net before he cuts me off, life will be good. And I did it. A little lucky there. If his teeth even nicked my leader, the bait's gone. So long, Mr. Pickerel. And next up is the 3-inch Rains Bubble and Shaker in pink. The chatterbait just wasn't getting them. The little micro chatterbait, I thought for sure they'd go for it, but no luck. Other than that pickerel. And I know they like this pink worm because I've fished this bait ice fishing. A lot of people fish tiny, tiny stuff ice fishing, and that can be a mistake. If the crappie are at all aggressive under the ice, they'll eat a 3-inch Rains Bubble and Shaker, no problem. I've caught a ton of crappie on that bait, and it calls them in from a further distance away. And I got one. And it's the target species. Decent size. The hook fell right out. Thanks for playing, Mr. Crappie. So this little pink worm works pretty well, but you do have to work it. With the Shad Fryz, you just cast it out and then slow roll it back. With the worm, you have to give it some action because on its own, it doesn't really have any action at all. So I work it with short little hops and pauses. The other thing is that, especially in the summer, these Rains Bowling Shakers are super soft and they tear up really easily. So I like them, but I mostly fish them in the winter and in colder water in the spring and fall because they just don't last. The fish will tear them up. That was a little crappie that I just released on the 3-inch Bubble and Shaker. Even little fish will eat that 3-inch worm, so don't be afraid to throw bigger sizes for crappie, and the fish will let you know if they're not into it, and you can switch to something smaller if you have to. Okay, last up is a Z-Man larvas. Looks like a little baby dragonfly nymph. I've done well with this bait in the fall when I'm fishing over deeper weed beds, but you do have to work it. I fish it sort of like I do the worm, with short hops and pauses, and I let it flutter down into deeper weeds usually. And I'm fishing it on a little shorty rod. That rod is only 4 foot 6 inches. I bought a President reel, a Fluger President ice fishing reel, a size 20 reel, and it came with this rod. And I thought, what the heck, I'll just get the rod for free and I can use the reel ice fishing. And it turned out okay, but the way it was mailed was in a regular rectangular box with the tip sticking out of the box. And I thought for sure the rod would be destroyed. But it ended up surviving shipping. And so now I use it kind of like a backup rod. It doesn't do a great job of keeping fish pinned because it is so short. But it is kind of fun to fish because it's only 4.5 feet. Anyway, I was fishing the larvas for a little bit and something ripped off the tail. They're not quite as durable as the Z-Man Shad Fryz. And I didn't put on another one. I didn't have any more readily available for me to put on. And it's kind of unfair because, I see I'm swinging at them at some fish and I'm missing them. They were just holding on to the tail, and eventually I ripped that tail off. The tail, even though it's a Z-Man bait, it rips off pretty easily. It rips even easier than the Shad Fryz, which are, decently durable, but they do, I usually wear out a couple per trip. The fish just eventually rip the tail right off. So this last one, with the Z-Man larvas is kind of unfair because it didn't have its tail for most of the test period. I know it works because I fished it in the fall, and it's a pretty good bait. It's also good for trout. If trout are eating dragonfly nymphs or other little aquatic insects, it's a pretty good bait for trout. I've caught a lot of trout on that bait. Okay, I had a good time out here floating around, catching some crappie on a bunch of different lures. Ooh, something behind me just bolted off the bank right there. I'm going to have to bring my bass gear next time and see if I can catch some bass right up against the bank in the bushes there. He's probably hanging out looking for some little crappie or sunfish to eat, just like those pickerel were earlier in the season. Anyway, we tried a bunch of different lures to see if we could beat the Z-Man Shad Fryz. And I'd say once again, in this very unscientific study, we didn't come close to the Z-Man Shad Fryz. The closest one was probably the Pink Rains Bubble and Shaker. It has some limitations. You got to work that bait. It's not very durable, but it does work. And I like that bait, especially in cooler water. The micro chatterbait, I don't think held a candle to the Z-Man Shad Fryz. And the Z-Man larvas, well, it was really kind of unfair because it lost its tail early on. I know they like that bait. So we'll say that's inconclusive. All right. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Just like all my other videos, I'll list all the gear in the video description so you can do exactly what I was doing here today. Do your own little crappie testing, see which baits work best where you are. And I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!